Hello class, welcome to week 7 of our children's literature class. We only have one more week after this week of the class, so I hope you all are working through those projects and kind of thinking about what you want to do for your final project as well. This week you'll have 3 different things that you're working through. You'll be doing 2 discussion boards. One is on historical fiction, and the other is on evaluating realistic fiction. So 2 discussion boards, and then I also want you to be thinking about that final project. The final project will be essentially creating a website in which you're discussing a specific theme in literature. You'll have 4 different pages on that website, and I know it sounds really intimidating to actually create a website, but it's not. I promise it's not as complicated as it sounds. We'll be working through kind of the technical issues of that this week and next week as you guys are prepping for that. But this week, one of the ways that you can prep for that is by doing the assignment on the outline. So the outline that you'll be doing for the website will include thesis statement, bibliographic sources, and also an actual outline of what you'll have on each of those pages for that website. So the outline is the major thing that you have to do this week, and then you have the 2 other discussion board posts. Just to talk a little bit about that outline that you'll be turning in this week, you need to make sure that you have at least 1 primary source and 5 secondary sources. So a primary source would include a children's book such as Harry Potter, for instance. If you wanted to do your website on Harry Potter and maybe the heroic quest or something like that, you'd be using the primary source of Harry Potter and then some secondary sources that talk about the hero's quest. Secondary sources would include scholarly articles. So if you haven't done any library research before, you're going to want to get started with that. Some of the best tools to use through our library at Cal Baptist are EBSCO, Academic Search Premier, JSTOR. All of those you can find on the library website. If you go to the library website and look for scholarly articles, you can actually just punch in, just like you would a Google search really, punch in some keywords that you want to look for, and you'll have an entire list of journal articles to sort through. So be thinking about finding 5 scholarly articles for that project. One thing that I did want to mention too about the website that you guys will be creating, just about the themes for the final project. Some students really struggle with finding a theme, and I know I've gotten a couple emails from you guys already, which is great, about ideas for themes for your website, and I'll be getting back to you guys soon. But do start thinking about those themes, so it's great for those of you who have already emailed. For those of you who haven't, go ahead and think about an idea that you want to be talking about for that final website, because you'll be basing, of course, your outline on that for this week. So email me with any ideas that you have. If you completely don't have any idea of what you want to do, that's fine, but email me and we'll come up with something. Also be thinking about sort of the differences here between themes and genres. I've had students before struggle with creating an actual genre for their website, but a genre and a theme is very different. A genre could include fairy tales, folklore, science fiction, fantasy, but a theme is really the focal point. The theme is something more along the lines of the moral of the story or a life lesson that a reader really comes away from the book with. So be thinking about that moral of the story or a life lesson that you want to talk about. It might be something as simple as how good triumphs over evil, or the family is the most important thing in life. Something along those lines. Again, if you start thinking about maybe a specific genre such as fantasy or science fiction that you want to work within, that's great. Start with that genre, but then make sure that you really get to the focal point of a specific theme. That theme needs to be based off of the primary source that you're using. So for example, I mentioned a few minutes ago that you could use as your primary source for the website Harry Potter. So if you're going to use the Harry Potter book that we talked about and read about this semester, you might look at a specific theme within that book. And then the 5 scholarly sources or secondary articles are going to be also based on that theme. So you need to have a cohesive theme that translates with both the primary source, or you might even have more than one source, your primary source. You might have two. And also those scholarly articles. So like I said, if you're having trouble coming up with themes, please let me know. There's also a link on our Blackboard site for those of you who are a little bit rusty with literary terms. If you want to look for other, there's even, you know, lists online, of course. Of course, you could Google probably some literary themes and come up with them. And I would even think about doing that. If you're having a hard time figuring out where to start, you might look at lists of literary themes to give you an idea of where to go, and then maybe even pick one or refine it or broaden it, modify it in some way, and then figure out what book that you read or haven't read that you want to read for the final project would be really applicable for that specific literary theme. So a couple ways you could do it, but there's a link on our Blackboard site that takes you to just sort of a brush up really on literary terms, but do your own research too. Maybe Google some literary themes that sound interesting to you, and then find a primary source that you want to use that relates to that literary theme. If you have any questions, please let me know. Also, if you have questions about creating the website next week, we'll be talking about that more at the beginning of next week, so don't worry too much about that, but it's really simple, I promise you. It's not going to be complicated. You do have 4 different pages for that website, so go back at week 6 and look at the actual example for this final project. If you look at the example in week 6, you'll see that there's 4 different web pages there that the student used. And so when you're doing your outline, make sure that you have an outline of what you're going to do for each of those 4 pages for that final project. Also, just a note about the thesis statement that's included in this outline due this week. The thesis statement should have something to do with that theme, of course. So the major theme that you're going to be running through all 4 of the pages, and your primary source, and your 5 scholarly articles for that final project. Please be emailing me this week if you have any questions. I'm happy to work through themes with you, ideas for your website, if you're worried about technical issues. I know that this is a little bit different probably than you've done for most English assignments, but I like the way that we can integrate technology and use it for very literary purposes. I could have you guys do an annotated bibliography or something paper-based, but because this is an online class, I think it's really fun to really explore technical venues. So you're essentially doing those annotated bibliographies, but you're doing them in video format, right? You're doing a final project where you're looking through a theme of literature, and of course it could be a long paper, a research paper, but instead of putting it in a paper format, you're putting in a web format. So I think it's really fun to be using the technological skills that you're learning and that we have access to because of the online class. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great week.